Hello, I hope you're all well. Regardless of where you are in the world, it might be good morning, it might be good afternoon, it might be good evening. But fantastic to have so many of you here and many familiar faces that I recognise. So, for those of you that haven't joined us before, my name's Lynsey and I'm from Social Bee, and we're an international digital marketing organisation that businesses around the globe, from the smallest to the largest, help generate profitable revenue online, and we also provide training. But what I want to share with you today, for sharing with me your really valuable time, is how to do podcasting. So, as always, for those of you that haven't joined before, fantastic to have you here. And please feel free to drop any questions or queries in the chat and I will answer them along the way. The whole pretense of me doing this live is for you to ask questions and have discussions amongst yourselves as well. So we have a huge amount to cover today, but I'd really love to know who is here. And also my first question is, do you listen to podcasts? So please drop it in the chat, your name. If you want to share your company, by all means do, and let us know if you listen to podcasts at the moment or not. And while you're doing that, I'm going to share some stats with you. I love podcasts on my mobile phone. I'm just going to share. Look, these are some of the ones. These are just some of the ones that I listen to. I'm a huge podcast fan for a number of reasons, and it's not just me. In the UK, there are a huge amount of people listen to podcasts. There's around 7.1 million people a week listen to podcasts, according to Ofcom. And in the US, about 55% of the population listen to a podcast, and about 22% of those listen every week. Now, that isn't just in the UK, and it isn't just in the US. This is a global thing. And the reason it's become so popular is, have a guess, the access to our lovely mobile phones and the fact we can multitask, which is one of the reasons I love podcasting most and listening to podcasts. So Mel's already sharing with us. Hi, Mel. Mel, I listen to podcasts and have been one and involved in their production. Lovely to have you here, Mel. Feel free to share your hints and tips as well. So why podcasting? Why should you think as a business you should be podcasting? Well, first of all, it's a growing audience with the stats I've shared. Second of all, you might be blogging at the moment, but if you are only blogging, you're probably missing 2/3 of your audience. 1/3 will be reading your blog posts, but you're missing people who like to watch video, and you're also missing people that like to listen. And the great thing I'm going to share with you today is you don't have to create new content to be doing podcasts. So, as I've already said, if you have any questions today, feel free to drop them in the chat. And just a reminder, would love to know if you listen to podcasts at the moment. And if you want to share what ones you're listening to, that would be all the better. So, just to share some other insight for you as well, the most popular podcast subjects are business, health, society and culture, comedy, and news and politics. And so there's a huge amount of content. And as you saw from the ones that I listened to, there is a huge plethora of content out there. And the thing I love about podcasts, I don't know about you and would love to know why you listen to them, is it's just such variety. I can be doing my housework, I can be driving in the car, I can be walking my dogs in the morning, and I can choose what I want to listen to. And I used to listen to hours of podcasts when I used to travel the world with work. I used to probably listen to anywhere between like 10 and 20 hours worth of podcasts a week because I was doing a lot of driving and traveling. It was a great way for me to be able to travel and listen and learn something at the same time. But it's interesting. It might be interesting to hear from you guys as well, to think about if your listening habits of podcasts have changed. I know mine have. So when I was traveling, I'd listen to a lot of entrepreneurial podcasts, a lot of business podcasts, a lot of digital podcasts. And since it's changed, since COVID lockdown, I really miss travel. So I actually started to listen to travel podcasts because I was like missing the travel element. But now I've gone back to listening to the types of podcasts that I like listening to. So that's enough of insight about me, because I'm not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about how you guys can get on the road of podcasting. Now, you might be thinking podcast sounds quite technical and I need to be a technical geek to do podcasts. Well, my first great tip for you today is you really do not. I've been podcasting since probably about February, and literally there is not a lot of kit involved. So I'm going to walk you through every element of that today. And again, if any of you have any questions, please just let me know. So I've shared with you a quick insight into why you should be podcasting. First of all, there's a huge audience out there. Second of all, a huge amount of them listen to podcasts every week. And when people subscribe to your podcast, and if I think about myself as well, what I tend to do is I'll listen to one, then I want to binge them because I want, the next podcast. I want to listen to the next one in the series. So how do you prepare for a podcast? The first thing is you need some software. Now, the great thing about podcasting is pretty much everything is free. So I'm not asking you to spend any money, which sounds amazing to me if I can help you reach a new audience without spending any money. So in terms of software, you will need a bit of software, but it's probably already on your laptop. So subject to if you have a PC or a Mac, you can use the following types of software: GarageBand or Audacity. Both of those are free, and you can either record and edit your podcast on there or just edit your podcast on there. In terms of other equipment you will need a lapel mic. So I'm not sure if you can see this here, but this little bit of kit here, it's about 30 quid on Amazon. Even if you don't have that though, you could potentially just use your iPhone or your earphones and mic from your mobile phone that you plug into your laptop. We've been doing a lot of our recording because we've been in lockdown. We were going into studios and using all the professional kit, which there's some amazing studios about. But we've been doing ours on Zoom. So Zoom provides really good quality. We've actually been turning them into videos as well where possible. So we're multitasking all of our content. So you can use Zoom to record your podcast, which means you'll probably all be very familiar with Zoom right now. I'm guessing we're all Zoom zombies by the end of today, aren't we? So that's the software that you'll need. And in terms of the kit, all you need is the mic, or you can use your headsets like this as well. Like, it really, really doesn't matter. The key is having quality microphone. The other bit of kit you'll need is you'll need somewhere to host your podcast. And the best host platform that I use is called Libsyn. You spell that Libsyn. Now, they have lots of packages on there. And the reason you need a hosting package is somewhere to basically store your podcast. So you can then embed it on your website and host it on all of the podcast systems that are out there, Spotify, and you can share them all on them for free. But they have a number of packages, but the packages that I think best are the $15 or the $20 a month. I think we do the $20 a month because me being me, I want to know where my data is coming from. So pretty much that is all the kit that you need to be able to do a podcast. So as you can probably tell, it's not a lot of amount of information or kit, is it? It's very, very simple. The other thing you will need or might want to have is music. So here is another money-saving tip for you. Many of you will be familiar with Pixabay because I talk about it in some of my other live YouTubes. But Pixabay also has music. Did you know that? I didn't. So if you Google Pixabay Music, there are free, royalty-free music bits that you can download. And I'll talk about that with you later because you want to have a bit of an intro and outro. So have any of you actually tried podcasting before? I know Mel kindly said that she had, but are there any other people on here that have been podcasting before today? So you might have podcasts already. Julian's saying not. Something new to him. We love teaching Julian things because Julian is an oracle of a lot of knowledge, taught me many, many things about time management and leadership over the years. So it's great that I'm actually able to help value and add to him as well. But how about the rest of you? Are any of you doing podcasting at the moment or here to learn about how to do it? So for those of you that have just joined us, my name's Lynsey and I'm from Social Bee, and we're talking about today all around podcasting. So we've already talked about why podcasting is really important, and you'll be able to watch this live back at the end, so you can always rewind it if you've missed the intro. We've also talked about planning ahead and the software that you need. Hi, Tom. Great to see you here. Julian, yep, you've spelled it correctly. Libsyn, Libsyn. It's an American surprise company. So in terms of the kit you need, it's really not a lot of kit. The hugest amount of work that I find doing podcasting is actually planning the blooming content. But I've got a great hint and tip to share with you today on that. So when we first started podcasting, we've been meaning to do it for ages, much like every other company on the planet. And February this year, we're going to crack this. We've already got the content there. People are asking us for podcast content. Let's just start cracking on and getting on with it. So my amazing colleague, Ollie, created a little intro and outro, which I'll come on to later. But we then just booked some studio time. And what we then did, and this is what I would highly recommend to you, is look at the content you already have. People are always thinking like, what am I going to talk about on my podcast? And regardless if it's podcast, video content, blog content, businesses often think, oh, my audience doesn't want to listen to me talk about this or talk about that. They absolutely do. The failure that we always have as business, regardless of the industry, is we think everybody knows what we know, but it's because we talk about it all day, every day. But regardless if we are talking to existing customers or talking to potential customers, there are always people that want to know the foundation level content that you have and you can just reel off and chat to somebody about. So my first tip to you to help you feel comfortable on podcasting is talk about a subject you know lots about. The other thing I would do is think about getting someone else on so you can have a conversation with people, because it's then much like this. Some people hate live video, and we did a YouTube live on this a couple of months ago, so feel free to flick back. But if you can have a conversation with somebody, it becomes a lot more natural. What a podcast is just reading a blog post. It's really very boring. So Chloe has said, yes, we have started playing around with podcasts, but we're looking for some helpful hints and tips. So hopefully, Chloe, I'm already sharing some with you, but if you've already started and you've got some helpful hints and tips as well, Chloe, please do share them. So pick up your blog content, have a look at your Google Analytics and see what are your most read blog articles over the last 3 to 6 months. That is gold dust, and that is content that you can quickly turn into a podcast. So we did that. We looked at our top visited blog posts, and we then said, right, okay, well, Lynsey can chat to Ollie about this one. She can chat to Paul about this one. And it put us at ease straight away, because it was just about having a conversation over a cup of tea. We didn't plan out what we were going to say. We knew the subject of things and we just had a conversation. And if you want to listen to our podcast, feel free to go and have a look. It's on our website under resources, and you can hear our first one and you can see and hear. It's just about having a chat conversation. But my biggest tip for you in time saving and efficiency saving is planning ahead and thinking about the content. So my content sources come from our website and our top blog posts. They also come from sometimes conversations, and I've got some podcast content that I'm going to be creating. I do a lot of training, and there's been quite a lot of questions that have come out of training recently, and I'm thinking this should be a podcast. I could really have a conversation on this. The other thing you can think about is getting external people involved, because it isn't always about the content that you have. You may be able to join it up. So I identified very quickly that there's loads of digital content out there for business to consumers, but there's very little case studies, conversations, podcasts around business to business. So one of my first guests is someone that I was lucky enough to be trained by many years ago, is Andy Bounds, and he's very good at LinkedIn. And he also highlighted to me when I reached out to him, he's like, Lynsey, I don't run my own LinkedIn, so should I really be on your podcast? And I'm like, absolutely. You're very successful. It doesn't matter if it's you doing your LinkedIn or if it's someone else. Come on to the podcast. Let's have a chat. And it got huge engagement and got a huge amount of downloads because it was something that people really wanted to listen to. So I was using my ears, listening to the types of questions that people were asking me, whether it be on the telephone or in training, virtual training, chats and stuff. And I just make a little note and go, that'd be an interesting podcast. So it doesn't always have to be you talking about something. It could also be inviting people on. Julian has asked a question. What's the difference between posting, say, a video clip on LinkedIn and a podcast? Good question, Julian. And it links me on to actually maximizing content. So planning ahead on your content, nice link in there, Julian, thank you. What I would be doing is we record all of our podcasts now on Zoom. And the bonus of doing them on Zoom is you can turn them into a podcast. So a podcast is something that you just listen to, Julian. So on here, if I press play on any of these, I wouldn't see anybody talking. I would just hear them. So a podcast is just listening to someone's voice. It might be a bit like listening to the radio. Same thing applies. But what we do is we do ours on Zoom, and we then turn them into YouTube content, and we turn them into podcast content. So we're getting 2 bits of content out of 1 bit of time and efficiency. And that works really, really well, because as I said at the beginning of today's session, some people like to watch, some people like to listen, and some people like to read. And by turning 1 piece of content into 3 bits of content, you're maximizing your effort in getting in front of a maximum amount of people. So listening to people, looking at your Google Analytics, looking at Google Trends are all great resources in terms of thinking about content. And then just really think about when you're doing your podcast content, just think like you're chatting to somebody. Some of our podcasts are just me talking. Some of them are me talking to someone else. Some of them are me talking to an external person as well. So it's a really good way to plan ahead, because from my point of view, that's the thing that takes the heftiest amount of work, is planning ahead and getting them booked in. In terms of podcasts, for those of you that do listen, how often do you listen to podcasts, and what types of podcasts do you listen to? When you're creating your podcast and planning ahead, it's up to you if you want to do a series and like block record them all ahead, or you can just do them each episode. So what we do is we've decided, and we've put it in our bio, is we do one every week. And when you're setting up your podcast, you do all of this within Libsyn. And what you then do is you then put in all of your content. You say, this is my account and this is my account. And in your bio, it's really important. So first of all, you need to pick a podcast channel name. Think keywords. So ours is called International Digital Marketing. And then in your bio, think of it like a summary of something. And again, it needs to be keyword heavy. It needs to also tell people what people are going to get out of your podcast, because what people are not going to do is listen to be sold to. So there should be no selling on podcasts, in my view, whatsoever. Excrete, pull out the value, give loads of value, educate, inspire, and entertain, and really focus on that types of content. Julian is already doing a lot of recording on Zoom, so he's going to be a dab hand at it. So once you've recorded your content, and obviously you can do it on Zoom or you can book into a studio. In terms of time, you might be thinking, how long should my podcast be? Don't focus on the time, focus on the value. We've got some podcasts that are 10 minutes long. We do a digital roundup once a month. We've got some that are an hour long. It's really about the value. There is no sort of optimum time. I've listened to podcasts that are hours long. I've listened to some that are 10 minutes long. It really depends on what sort of mood you're in and what type of content you're thinking about as well. When it comes to publishing your content and editing your content, we're going to move on to that now. So if you listen to any podcast, there'll be some sort of standard intro and outro, and you can record those ahead of the game. So don't do your intro for every single podcast. What I would do is I would record my podcast intro and my outro, and don't worry, you can edit that out in GarageBand or Audacity. Just YouTube how to edit those, because they are so simple. I can do it, so really anybody can. And then what you can do is you would overlay that with music, and you do that in Audacity or GarageBand. And again, it is really simple. You basically have different like columns for things. You have a column for music, and then you have a column for your voice. And basically you just drag and drop, and then you can just drag a line down and say, I want the music to fade out at this point. If I can do it, honestly, anybody can do it. And then once you've got that set up, your intro and your outro, literally what you do is when you've recorded your Zoom, at the end of Zoom, it will say, we're just compressing your Zoom recording. And at the end, it will give you a video recording, and it will give you an audio only. And you basically save that audio only and you drop it into GarageBand or Audacity. And then you can literally just edit it out. Edit out the ums and the ahs, but don't edit it too heavily, because I find some people edit it too heavily and it just sounds very, I don't know, just sounds a bit too perfect, where on ours you'll have us like laughing and ums and ahs and joking about stuff, and people love that type of conversation. So you can edit it in there really, really simply. Once you've done it, you then click save or export, subject to what platform you're in, and then you would then upload it to Libsyn. Now you will need a logo, and again you can use Canva for that. So you can just put your own your own logo. We've used Social Bee with some waves in the background, or it might be that you want to have a different logo. You would then upload that to Libsyn. Now this is where you need to just think a bit careful on the title of your podcast, because people will search on podcasts. Google is also indexing podcasts and podcast channels now. So think keywords, and also think, just by reading a podcast title, how can I compel people to actually listen to it? So if I just put B2B podcast case study, it's as dull as dishwater, isn't it? It's not very enticing. Where if you put a compelling title, then people are going to go, yep, I know if I'm going to listen to this, I'm going to get some answers to this and this and this. So think about the title. So that's pretty much it in terms of what kit you need, planning ahead, recording it, editing it, and uploading it. But of course, once you've uploaded it, it's basically the best sweet shop hidden in the best sweet shop, at the back of the store. So you need to tell people you're podcasting, because don't rely on just the podcast system for people to find you. So create a little bit of a plan. Pick out snippets from your podcast, and I would put them on your LinkedIn channels. Email your database, and also think about sharing some clips on social media. So it might be you should share some clips on LinkedIn, share them on Twitter, share them, and you can do voice on Twitter now, of course, if you didn't know. Share them on Instagram as well. And why not, if you've recorded it on Zoom, why not upload it to YouTube as well? And then you've got video and audio content. You're then really maximizing the types of people that you can engage with. Now, I've got a few other hints and tips for you as well. With Libsyn, it will tell you how many people have listened to the episode. And what you will find, and this is the great thing about podcast content, is sometimes if you do blog content, if you've optimized it, it will always generate traffic. But sometimes with podcast content, people will listen to it all the time. So people might come across your podcast because they've not come across it before. So just because you published a podcast back in January doesn't mean it's not going to be listened to after January. We've got, once people download, once people subscribe and see our podcast, we get a huge amount of listens on all of ours throughout all the months. And Libsyn will tell you that. What Libsyn will also tell you is what part of the world people are listening from. And this, again, is the great thing about podcasts. It isn't just people in your audience. People will discover you from all over the world. We've got a question from the lovely Otterbock. Otterbock is an amazing company that provide prosthetic legs, arms, and mobility items for people around the world. Lovely to see you here. They've got a question. I'm interested to understand the equipment we need to record podcasts in-house. I missed the beginning of the session, so I have already covered it, but I'm more than happy to cover it again for you guys. It's not a lot of things. All you need is this little bit of kit here, basically this, which is about £30. It's a Rode mic. That is the only bit of equipment you need to do it in-house that you need to pay for. The other equipment you need is a Zoom account and GarageBand or Audacity, and both of those are free. The other bit of kit you need to host your podcast is Libsyn. And if you rewind back, you can watch it back as well. Alicia's asked a question. What did you mean about being able to do voice on Twitter? Twitter last month announced that actually you can record voice on your Twitter profile. So rather than sending a tweet, if you just click audio, you can record it, and basically you have a little voice audio on your tweets. Obviously, you want to add some text around them as well, but it's a new feature they launched last month. Stefan's asked a question. I never knew Audacity did video. I've only ever used it for sound. So Audacity doesn't do video editing. Sorry, I wasn't clear on that. If you want to do video editing, you need to use another bit of software. You might want to use InShot. InShot's very good and is free. That's the one that I tend to use, or there are paid options only. So Audacity and GarageBand are only for audio. They are not for video content. Or you can use YouTube, have some editing features as well. So hopefully those questions are helpful to you. Audacity, yes, sorry, Julian. Audacity is only for audio content. But when you record Zoom, when you download it, it will say you've got an audio only file, and it's that bit that you then import into your Audacity file or your GarageBand file, and then it just brings in the audio side of things. Hopefully that makes sense now, Julian, Stefan, and anyone else that's confused. So some other hints and tips for you, and some other bits of kit that might be useful that I find really, really useful. There's a piece of software that, again, is free called Backtracks. Backtracks is a free account that you can log into, and it will tell you actually how many people are subscribed to your account, because that's a question I get asked a lot. How do I know how many subscribers I've got to my channel? If you log into that, it's called Backtracks. It will tell you how many subscribers you have to your channel, which is always fascinating. In Libsyn, it'll tell you how many downloads you've got, when people downloaded, and what country they downloaded from. But if you want to know how many subscribers you've got, that is a cool bit of kit. Now, you might be thinking, Lynsey, this is all amazing, but why? How do I know that my audience is actually listening to podcasts? Well, there's another bit of software that is amazing. It's free, 10 searches a month for free. If you don't know Rand Fishkin, he's an amazing digital guy, set up as one of the founders of Moz, and now runs Spark Toro. All these things have weird and wonderful names, don't they? Spark, as in Spark, Toro. So SparkToro. Toro. Go and have a look. I actually did a review on them a couple of months ago. So if you have a look at our YouTube channel, you'll see the review I did. But it's a great bit of kit. It tells you a load of data on different things. But what it also tells you is if you put your website into their channel and say, what do people do outside of our website? It will tell you the visitors to your website. It will tell you what podcasts they listen to. So it will tell you what podcasts they listen to, and it will also tell you the percentage of them that listen to podcasts. So you might be thinking, Lynsey, our audience doesn't listen to podcasts. Don't take my word for it. Why not put your website into SparkToro or any of your competitors? You can also put subjects in there. So if it's about leadership or time management, which I know Julian is an amazing person for, he could put people that are interested in time management. He could put that in, and it would tell you if those types of people are listening to podcasts and what types of podcasts they're listening to. Otterbock have now asked another question. Are there any other platforms you would recommend other than Zoom? In terms of recording, you can use Audacity or GarageBand to record directly into those channels. But if you are doing interviews and things like that, I potentially think Zoom. We've been doing all of ours in Zoom since we've been in lockdown. We were going into studios before lockdown. And obviously we wanted to keep our podcast going. So we have literally just been using Zoom and turning that into podcast content and video content. But if you want to use other platforms, you can record your podcast in GarageBand or Audacity. And if you Google, and no doubt there are some other ones out there as well. So we've covered a huge amount of things today. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else that we can cover for you. That's quite a lot. I don't think there is anything. Are there any other questions that you would like to ask me? More than happy to take any other questions. You've been asking me lots of things today, but more than happy to take any other questions. But hopefully through the hints and tips I've shared with you today, I haven't scared you off. Hopefully I've just encouraged you to see how easy it is. As always, if anybody has any questions or queries after today, I don't bite, and I'm always happy to take questions via email. My email is lynsey@socialbee.co.uk. You can watch this video back. You can also sign up to our emails or drop me a link on Twitter or LinkedIn, and I can answer any questions. Mel has asked the most common pitfall. I think it's a good question, Mel. The most common pitfall I would probably see is people don't do it because they're too frightened of it. They also think they can promote on it. People are doing a lot of that on webinars as well at the moment. The other common pitfall is not planning ahead. So people think, yeah, I'll go on with the best intentions and I'll do all these podcasts. And within a couple of weeks, they're like, I've run out of content and it takes up too much time. So planning ahead, getting ahead of the game and having some backup ones as well. So you're not thinking, oh my God, we're supposed to do a podcast today. It should be published. Having some back catalogue ones to do as well. And also thinking not too far out of the box. So like I said earlier, people are always like, oh, people have heard that. Some people listen, some people watch, some people read. So you might have a blog post, and some of the ones that we started off with, a blog post that we did like 2 or 3 years ago, but we've turned them into podcasts and we've had a huge amount of listening. And also our digital roundup. We thought, oh, should we do our digital roundup once a month? Are people really going to listen? They do. They love it because they can listen to what's been going on in digital marketing over the last month and be doing their washing up, walking their dogs, etc. So hopefully that answers the most common pitfalls that I see, Mel. Stefan, what sort of topics work best? Ones that are in demand. So topics work best are things that isn't already out there. So as I touched on earlier, there's not a lot of, I know people are always saying, what great B2B digital marketing case studies that you've shared. And there's loads of B2C ones, or there's really big B2B ones, Salesforce and examples of that. So things that there isn't already out there that you know about, or people you can tap into. Thinking about things that are timely. So timely content. So in terms of subjects that work best, I would not guess. I would look at my Google Analytics and see what's my top traffic. I would look at Google Trends and see what is trending at the moment. I would, if you are talking to your audience and talking to your target audience and your customers, just like make a mental note if they're asking you a question and think 2 or 3 people have asked me that question. That is a podcast. And just thinking about the most common questions that you might get asked on, your emails, or the most common page visited on your website. How can you turn that into content? So hopefully that answers your question, Stefan. Any other questions before we round up today? Looks like we've had lots of questions. Like I said, I hope you've enjoyed today's session. Next month, we've already planned it ahead, and we're going to be talking all about influencer marketing. Now, influencer marketing isn't just about the consumer's world. It's all about any type of business, whether you're B2B or B2C. There is a huge platform for influencer marketing, nano, micro influencers. And again, it's not a place that you should be frightened of. So I'm going to be covering that next month. So please do come back. I hope you've enjoyed today's session. I've got one more question that Julian's getting in lastminute.com. If you had to make a choice between making a video and a podcast, what one would you put first? Julian, I would do a video because I know out of that video, I could then edit a podcast and create a podcast. I can't create a video out of a podcast. So I would do video first, and I can always then create the podcast whenever I want. So if I was picking, if I had to do one thing first, I would do video content, get that up on YouTube, embed it on my website. I would then at a later stage, or as and when I have time, export the audio to that video, or if I've saved it anyway, I'd export that and do it as a podcast. And I would also, and this is one tip I haven't shared with you today, make sure you don't just put your podcast on a podcast page within your website. If you have the blog equivalent, then embed it on there because Google loves that. So make sure you do that as well. So thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you've enjoyed my hints and tips, and thank you very much for your interaction as always. It's always great to chat to you. So thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next month. See you later.